By the end of Elbaf, Blackbeard will have a third all-powerful Devil Fruit, an official kingship under the world government, and the ancient weapon Pluton, making him the most powerful pirate in the world by far. This is the storyline where Blackbeard's full master plan will come together, setting him up as the strongest pirate enemy Luffy will ever face heading into the final war. Because just as the Egghead arc repeatedly cut away from the Straw Hats to show the Blackbeard pirates making several major moves, capturing Kobe, capturing Pudding, stealing Saturn's identity, and seizing the road poneglyphs, the Elbaf arc is set to complete the Blackbeard pirate storyline, with Blackbeard's final moves for the endgame already established to be in motion. Once this arc concludes, One Piece's greatest villain will be heading into the final war with unprecedented influence, the ultimate weapon, and the 3 most powerful Devil Fruits in the world, making him a worthy final test for Luffy to become Pirate King. So let's break down how each of these moves for Blackbeard have been clearly set up by Oda, and how they will be playing out. But first, this month, you can get some of One Piece's all-time classic islands for your walls: Alabasta, Reverse Mountain, Punk Hazard, and even Tequila Wolf. The posters are printed on matte paper, hand-cut by the artist himself. Each of these posters can be purchased individually, or you can get all 4 of them together for 50% off. You can also still get the premium package if you want to appear on my streams, and in that case, you can also choose any poster from 2024 as well. So if you want Alabasta, Reverse Mountain, Punk Hazard, and Tequila Wolf for your walls, just hit the link in the description below. All posters from 2024 will also be available in the complete original set bundle. So to begin with, the biggest immediate step that we know Blackbeard is about to pull off is his plan to become an official king of the world government. While this desire of his initially seemed impossible considering his previous betrayal of the world government, the stars have now perfectly aligned for Blackbeard to leverage his way into royalty. Blackbeard believed that with a strong enough bargaining chip, he would be able to negotiate with the world government to become a king. Kobe was not a good enough bargaining chip due to being a member of SWORD. However, Blackbeard traded up by getting a hold of Garp instead, who is a far, far more valuable bargaining chip. Garp is easily the most beloved and famous Marine in the world, universally known as the legendary hero of the Marines. And so for the crown jewel of the world government's military to be a captive of a pirate is an absolutely devastating blow to the world government's image. As such, Garp is probably the single most valuable bargaining chip that Blackbeard could have his hands on right now, aside from Fleet Admiral Akainu himself. The world government will be desperate to get Garp back in order to save face, but is that enough for them to make Blackbeard, a pirate emperor of all people, an official king? Well, if that alone is not enough, Oda has set things up so that Blackbeard now has the perfect opportunity to force the Celestial Dragons to the negotiating table. Right now, the Revolutionary Army are laying siege to the Celestial Dragons, starving them out, and there is no easy solution to the situation. The Marines are already stretched extremely thin across the globe and are dealing with a crisis of their own thanks to Cross Guild's bounties making them a target of even common citizens. The Gods Knights are out recruiting new forces in preparation for the final war. As such, there is no end in sight for the Celestial Dragon siege, as they don't seem to have the resources at the moment to properly combat the revolutionaries. And this is precisely why the Blackbeard pirates have been monitoring the situation and have clearly stated that they are about to make a move to capitalize. We don't know exactly what their plan is just yet, but from Blackbeard and Lafitte's conversation, they are very clearly planning something to interfere with the revolutionaries' siege. And so the perfect situation has been set up for Blackbeard to force the Celestial Dragons to negotiate with him for a kingship. The Celestial Dragons have a desperate need, which is getting the siege resolved so that they don't starve, and Blackbeard can leverage his ace up his sleeve on top of that, which is returning the hero of the Marines to them. Blackbeard the King is essentially bound to happen, as there is really no other reason for Oda to have written this whole elaborate setup of first the entire Hachinosu raid, so that Blackbeard can capture Garp as the perfect bargaining chip, and then also writing this whole siege scenario where the Celestial Dragons seem to now need the Blackbeard pirates to swoop in to save them. If at the end of the day, all of this doesn't result in paying off this plotline of Blackbeard aiming to become king. And most importantly, why does becoming an official king matter? To begin with, it would give Blackbeard an unprecedented level of power and influence compared to the other Yonko. Doflamingo was the only previous pirate to officially be made a king, and we saw how much influence that got him, as it allowed him to even call upon the aid of the Marines when needed. And more importantly, this deal to become king would give Blackbeard the right to access Marijua like other kings. And here is where things can get absolutely crazy, because what the world government doesn't know is that the Blackbeard pirates have the ability to transform into a Gorosei, which could allow Blackbeard to steal command over the Pacifista and even the Seraphim if he gets the chance. So giving Blackbeard access to Marijoa would essentially be the Celestial Dragons unknowingly giving Blackbeard the keys to walk in and steal the most powerful soldiers imaginable. But even that is not as valuable as Blackbeard's next major move. So one thing we know about the Blackbeard pirates is that they like to execute their plans on multiple fronts at the same time. During Wano, one faction went after Boa Hancock, while another group raided Whole Cake Island to capture Pudding. During Egghead, part of the crew ambushed the Heart Pirates, while another group infiltrated Vegapunk's lab, and the final group guarded Hachinosu. And now, at the start of Elbaf, we see that at least some of the Blackbeard pirates led by Lafitte are going to be launching their plan to deal with the revolutionary siege, but it's very likely that Blackbeard himself will be involved in another scheme entirely, something that is simply too important to not demand his immediate attention: the ancient weapon, Pluton. See, Oda is setting up these elaborate storylines for the Blackbeard pirates for a reason. Nothing about Blackbeard is ever accidental. The long-running plot of Blackbeard attempting to become a Shichibukai pre-time skip was all set up for his major betrayal at Marineford, where he revealed that he only became Shichibukai to attain a Yonko-level crew from the Impel Down inmates. And so now we have these two new long-running threads for Blackbeard. First is of course the goal of becoming king, which began with capturing Kobe and then turned into capturing Garp, and now is leading up to interfering with the revolutionary siege, all to resolve the plot of making Blackbeard a king. At the same time, the other long-running plot thread that we had throughout the first 500 chapters of the post-time skip was Caribou acquiring information for Blackbeard about the ancient weapons, with Caribou first finding out about Poseidon, then Caribou being captured and taken to Wano, so that Caribou could then find out about Pluton, and finally Caribou being captured and dropped off at the feet of the Blackbeard pirates, so that he could tell them about both ancient weapons. With last we saw Blackbeard agreeing to speak to Caribou to hear out his information. This entire long-running plot thread has a purpose. From the very beginning, Caribou specifically wanted to get this information to Blackbeard. Oda wrote this entire extended 500-chapter story for Caribou because from beginning to end, it was all about getting Blackbeard information about the ancient weapons. Very obviously, because the plan all along was that Blackbeard is supposed to get his hands on at least one ancient weapon. Now, it could very well be both. It's possible that Blackbeard is supposed to seize both Pluton and Shirahoshi, since Oda went out of his way to make sure that Caribou found out both pieces of information. However, that doesn't necessarily mean that Blackbeard will acquire both. It's possible he makes an attempt on both, but only gets one. It's a bit too much for me to say that Blackbeard will definitely get both, but at the very least, at the moment, the ancient weapon that he seems guaranteed to get is Pluton. To begin with, Blackbeard right now doesn't have a real ship. He still just uses log rafts like he did pre-time skip. His fleet could use an actual real flagship, and my guess is that Oda waited on giving Blackbeard a true ship for a long time, precisely because Blackbeard was destined to get Pluton. Remember, every pirate's ship symbolizes them in some way, from the Queen Mama Chanter, to the Moby Dick, to the Thousand Sunny, and Pluton is the ship that best symbolizes Blackbeard, as Blackbeard is specifically all about destruction. He is an agent of destruction. His true fruits are characterized by being able to turn everything to nothing and to destroy everything. So naturally, all along, his signature ship was always going to be Pluton, the ultimate battleship that destroys everything in its path. That's why Oda kept the log rafts as the simple placeholder ship for Blackbeard even post-time skip, till the time was right for Blackbeard to get his true ship. On top of this, remember that the only two real other options as to who could acquire Pluton would be the world government or the Straw Hat Pirates. And in the world government's case, Pluton would be redundant, as Oda already gave them Uranus, which seems to serve the same purpose as Pluton of destroying islands, but seems to do it even better in that they can attack from the skies anywhere on the globe. And as for the Straw Hat Pirates, it's been made pretty clearly evident that they are not interested in the existing Pluton. And even if they were to ever desire Pluton, then their shipwright Franky is obviously 100% capable of making Pluton for them himself should the need arise. That was kind of like the entire point of Franky's storyline in Water 7 and Enies Lobby. And it's also very likely the reason that Franky has now come full circle to the Atom Tree, the one tree from which he could upgrade the Sunny into Pluton if he so chose. But I explain all that in far greater detail in this video that you can watch next. So ultimately, Blackbeard being the one to get Pluton makes by far the most sense in terms of need and theme for the character, and the plot has obviously been planned planned out very far in advance specifically to bring Blackbeard the information of Pluton's whereabouts to his doorstep. But most importantly, Blackbeard has also been set up as the one and only character who can actually acquire Pluton. The way Oda positioned Pluton so that only Blackbeard can really get to it is nothing short of genius. This is Wano's structure. It is essentially surrounded by a ringed wall, so it's kind of like a giant elevated well, and Pluton is somewhere at the bottom of this well. It's damn near impossible to find Pluton so far inside this well, and it's been made clear that the only way to get to Pluton is by destroying these walls. We have been told that that is the only way to unleash the ancient weapon back into the world. This is fucking huge. This is basically as painfully clear as could possibly be spelled out, that Blackbeard and only Blackbeard is the one who can unearth Pluton. Blackbeard has the one and only fruit to break Wano's walls, the Gura Gura no Mi. It's as though Oda set up Wano's very structures specifically so that only someone with the Gura Gura no Mi can actually open the borders and release Pluton back into the world. Blackbeard is about to hear where Pluton is, and he will definitely be making an expedition to Wano as soon as he hears this, considering Blackbeard happily made the trip all the way to Amazon Lily just to pick up Boa Hancock's Devil Fruit, which is infinitely less valuable than the legendary ancient weapon that can destroy the world. This whole thing is a very clear setup for Blackbeard to get the ship that he was always destined to have. So while the Strats are going through their storyline in Elbaf, we will be seeing the Blackbeard pirates not only making their move on the Revolutionary Siege to gain leverage on the Celestial Dragons, we will be seeing Blackbeard himself make a move on Wano to take Pluton. I imagine Blackbeard would also want to go after Poseidon, but attacking Fishman Island is simply far more difficult due to its location. And Blackbeard doesn't have any fishmen on his crew, so it's hard to see how he would successfully pull off a raid on the island. At the very least, one ancient weapon, Pluton, will definitely be acquired, and the kingship will definitely be acquired as well, setting up Blackbeard with the ultimate weapon and influence. But the last thing Blackbeard will be upgrading before the final war is himself. We all know Blackbeard needs a third Devil Fruit. Right now, he is simply not strong enough to be a true endgame threat. It's unlikely Blackbeard is yet even at the level of Yonko like Kaido or Shanks, considering Blackbeard's struggles with Trafalgar Law. If Blackbeard really is going to be the final villain or the second to last villain, then he needs to be an opponent worthy of the Pirate King, a threat for Luffy at least on par with what Rocksteady Zebek was for Gold Roger. And considering Blackbeard has been picking up powerful Devil Fruits so far to upgrade his strength, and his flag consists of 3 skulls, most readers believe that there is a third fruit on the horizon for Blackbeard. And the answer for what that fruit is has become fairly apparent. There is finally one other legendary fruit that is being hyped up in the story. The fruit that is the centerpiece of the Elbaf arc. The fruit that Loki has eaten that makes him believe that he is the true sun god. This fruit will ultimately be Blackbeard's fruit. I've already dropped videos explaining in great detail why Blackbeard and Loki's paths were always destined to cross, with Blackbeard ultimately taking Loki's fruit to become the true dark counterpart to Luffy's sun god. But now this destiny seems all the more likely considering Blackbeard and Loki are written to be parallels to each other as well. These are the 2 primary followers of Rocksteady Zebek of the current generation. Blackbeard, we already know, is following in Zebek's footsteps, even naming his raft the Saber of Zebek. And Loki has made it clear that Zebek was the pirate who inspired him as a child, the pirate that he wanted to follow just as Luffy wanted to follow Shanks. However, the simple difference is that Loki is being built up as an actually kind-hearted and simply misguided character, whereas Blackbeard is a conniving villain through and through who genuinely represents the dark opposite of Luffy. And with Loki carrying this special fruit that is seemingly related to the sun god, his fate is pretty much sealed as a victim to Blackbeard. It's quite likely Loki is the follower of Rocks who will ultimately grow to see the error of his ways, which will ultimately come at a price as the true successor to Rocks will turn Loki into a stepping stone in his path to become the genuine modern-day Rocksteady Zebek. What's especially interesting is that Rocks even implies that he initially came to Elbaf in the first place with a specific purpose, and as literally the only thing of value that has ever been established to be the treasure of Elbaf is the legendary fruit of the royal family, I wouldn't be surprised if Loki is now in possession of the fruit that Rocks once coveted, the same fruit that Blackbeard will take from him to fulfill Rocks' legacy. And if you don't believe that Oda would kill Loki to further Blackbeard's story, I'd first remind you that 1. Oda is willing to kill off characters who have specifically made their peace with death, such as Whitebeard, Ace, and Pedro, and Loki is literally written being explicitly clear that he has zero problems with dying a warrior's death. And on top of that, I would remind you that however Blackbeard gets his third fruit, it is going to be by killing someone, because that is the entire point. Blackbeard gains powers by being a cutthroat. His devil fruit gains are stained with blood. He got the Yami Yami no Mi by killing Thatch for it. He got the Gura Gura no Mi by killing Whitebeard for it. There is zero chance that Blackbeard just picks up his third fruit through some good old-fashioned, honest adventure and treasure hunting. That's not how this character is written. He's getting the third fruit through murder because that's what makes Blackbeard, Blackbeard. And so it's no coincidence that we have just been introduced to a character who is very prepared to die a warrior's death, and who is probably the only fruit that is set to match the legend and significance of Luffy's fruit, a fruit that Oda has been conveniently saving for the latest point in the story, the point before the final war. So yes, it is extremely likely that Blackbeard will be swooping in by the end of it all to take Loki's fruit, because by the time the final war starts, Blackbeard needs to be the strongest pirate enemy Luffy has ever faced, a true final challenge worthy of the Pirate King. The rocks to Luffy's Roger, meaning Blackbeard should surpass the Yonko we've seen so far, and the Elbaf arc is set up to do precisely that, with Blackbeard first gaining more influence than any pirate in history by becoming allied with the world government as official royalty, second, gaining the weapon of mass destruction Pluton, and finally by acquiring a third broken devil fruit, making Blackbeard the wielder of the 3 arguably strongest devil fruits in history, and therefore potentially the strongest pirate of the last 20 years. So let me know in the comments below what you think Blackbeard's next steps are, and if you enjoyed this video then definitely like and subscribe. And if you want to hear exactly how Blackbeard will take Loki's fruit, you can listen to my weekly podcast that just dropped by becoming a member or by supporting me on Patreon, link in the description below.